Welcome again, everyone, to Dr. Scott's Maths Made Simple. Triangles number 2, trigonometry. So the hardest thing about trigonometry is spelling the word. I couldn't spell it, I had to look it up. Doesn't matter, I know what it means. We talk about sine, cos and tan. 3 things. When we say sine, we mean the sine of an angle, like in a triangle. Cos of an angle, tan of an angle. It's always of an angle. If you put into your calculator the sine of 30 degrees, you will get a number, 0 point something. If you put the cos of 30 degrees, you get a different number. If you put the tan of 30 degrees, you get something else again. Okay? Sine, cos and tan always refer to an angle. That's something no one ever tells you to start with. So today I'll only be talking about right angle triangles. Don't forget, a right angle equals 90 degrees. Right angle triangles, we can use sine, cos and tan and trigonometry in triangles that don't have right angles, but that's quite advanced mathematics. We're not doing that today, we're just doing right angle triangles. What the sine, cos and tan, or trigonometry, helps us work out, we can work out a side of a triangle or another side, or we can work out an angle if we need to. We're given a little bit of information by your teachers. So don't forget, with a right angle triangle, there's always a hypotenuse. That's the hypotenuse. It's always the longest side, and it's always opposite the right angle. So that's the longest side of a right angle triangle. It's always opposite the right angle. So, sine of an angle is the opposite over the hypotenuse. That side over that side. Let's call this x and let's call this y. So that's x and that's y. So sine is opposite x over hypotenuse, h. Cos is adjacent, so it's not the opposite one of this angle here, it's the adjacent side, y over h, the hypotenuse. Cos equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan equals opposite, so x over adjacent, y. So sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cos equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Hypotenuse being the longest side of a right angled triangle. Tan equals opposite over adjacent. Sine, cos, tan. Opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. I don't know if you can tell how old a horse is, because I can't, but I use this little rhyme to help me with trigonometry. Old horses always hide old age. That's how I remember sine, cos, tan. Sine, cos, tan. Opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. So, say you're given the h here, and say your teacher says h equals 22 centimetres. And they say this angle here, we'll call it alpha. Alpha equals 32 degrees. They say, what is x? Well, you have one length, you have one angle. You can work out what x is, because the sine of alpha equals x over h. So therefore the sine of alpha equals x over 22. Now if we multiply both sides by 22, we get 22 times sine of alpha. Now don't forget alpha is 32 degrees. 32 degrees equals x. So 22 times the sine of 32 degrees equals x. If you put the sine of 32 degrees, sine 32 into your calculator, you'll get a number. Sine of 58, sine of 79, sine of 513. You'll get a number. You'll always get a number when you do this with sine, cos or tan. So 22 times the sine of 32 will give us our x. What if they said work out the y? Well, that's the interesting thing. If we're only given alpha, which is 32 degrees, the cos of alpha equals y divided by h. Remember, adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cos of alpha equals y over the hypotenuse, which is 22. So the cos of 32 degrees equals y over 22. Remember, this is the hypotenuse. Cos equals adjacent on hypotenuse. Cos of 32 degrees equals adjacent on hypotenuse. So if we multiply both sides by 22, we get 22 times cos 32 degrees equals y. When you put this into your calculator, you'll get a number. We have a number here. A number times a number equals y. So you work out your y. Then we have tan. Tan of an angle equals opposite over adjacent. So they said y equals 17. It can be 17 centimeters, 17 meters, 17 inches, it doesn't matter. Y equals, this side equals 17. Your angle is the same at 32 degrees. Figure out what x is. Well, we know the tan of alpha equals x over 17. Multiply both sides by 17, and we have 17 times tan alpha. And we're given alpha is 32 degrees equals x. That'll be a number in your calculator. That's a number times a number equals a number. So you can work out x. What if they said to you, what is h? And they gave you y equals 17, and we have to find h, and the angle is 32 degrees. Remember, this is only in right angle triangles. So the cos, what I'm going to do is use cos of alpha. Cos of 32 degrees is adjacent over hypotenuse. We're trying to find the hypotenuse, the longest side. Cos of 32 equals adjacent, the adjacent side, not the opposite one, but the adjacent one, equals 17 over h. This is a number, this is a number. I could also, because this is 32 degrees and that's 90 degrees, if you add them together, they make 122 degrees. So we know that this is 58 degrees. Remember, there's 180 degrees in every triangle. So I know if this is 32 degrees, this is 90 degrees, that's 122. 122 from 180 is 58 degrees. I could also work out the hypotenuse by doing the sine of 58 degrees equals y, opposite. So it's the side that's opposite that angle, y, which is 17, over h. this is a number, and this is a number. So again, you'll get the same answer for h whether you do the sine of 58 or the cos of alpha, which is 32 degrees. So it's a way of working out the length of sides given one side and given one angle. You can work it out. Don't forget, just going back to the last lesson, x squared plus y squared equals h squared, always in a right angle triangle. The final thing is, they might say this, they might say x equals 16, h, the hypotenuse, equals 34. Centimeters, inches, I don't care. It doesn't matter. What is alpha? And we're not given 58 degrees here. We don't know what this angle is. So we don't know what this angle is, and we don't know what this angle is, alpha or beta, but we can work it out. Because the sine of alpha, remember the sine of alpha, we've done this just before, the sine of alpha equals opposite 16 over 34, the hypotenuse. So if we put into our calculator, on your calculator you'll find a special button, sine to the minus 1. You'll also find cos to the minus 1, tan to the minus 1. It's a way of working backwards to get the angle. Stay tuned in. I haven't lost you yet. So sine to the minus 1 of 16 on 34 equals alpha. That'll give you your angle. So if you put 16 on 34 and sine to the minus 1 of that in your calculator, it will give you the angle of alpha. And then you can easily work out beta as well, because you know these three angles are always going to add up to 180 degrees. Okay, we'll stop there. It's a heavy lesson. The main thing to remember is old horses always hide old age. Sine, cos, tan. Opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. And don't forget, life is not a rehearsal. Go for it and do everything you possibly can. Thank you.